Hey guys, it's TheFrXion here, or TigerTang12, however you want to call me, I don't really care, and today we're looking at the Object 257, and if you have watched my previous video about the not the preview, but a little outlook on the update to 9.22, you would have seen this tank in action, just one game where I played it, and I didn't do that well, don't worry, it was a live action gameplay. And yeah, today we're going to be covering the Object 257, the T10 replacement that is going to lead up to the IS-7. The very first thing that we'll notice is that this tank looks really weird. Its hull is shaped like a V, and it does look similar to a tank that we already have in the game, but that nobody can unlock anymore, and that is the T-22 medium tank. We can actually real fast go over to the comparison. We're not going to compare these tanks, don't worry. I just want to preview the tank. And there you can see it's almost the same kind of V-shaped hull down here. So it's the same kind of tank design, and we guys know that the T-22 has been one of the strongest medium tanks, if not the strongest tier 10 medium tank in the game. And having this kind of hull, is it going to break the game? That's the question. I've heard a lot of people being super excited about this tank. At the same time, there are a few people who are kind of somber because the armor is what they think is all that's going on for the game, for this tank. But now, let's talk about the hull, because this is very important. This is very interesting. Since it's a T-22 kind of shaped hull, a V hull, it's going to be very interesting, because if we take a look at the side right here, you can see that the hull right here is not at a 90 degrees angle, but it's slowly going downward. So it's like a V. So you have a crazy angle. If anyone shoots you at the side, like right below the tracks right here, they will a lot of times bounce your tank, because we'll see the side armor with 140 millimeters thickness and at this angle will be very, very powerful. So you'll have to shoot the spaced armor on top, on the side, if you want to shoot this tank on the side. Spaced armor on the side, obviously it's spaced armor. It's not that nice to be shooting spaced armor, and you're gonna run into some troubles. But what's very interesting about this tank is that it's, look, like, for example, compare it to the Object 705. Do you notice any difference, except for, you know, the hull being completely different or all that stuff? But take a look at their height difference. Like, it's almost the same. It's almost the same height, right? But this tank, like, I mean, the Object 257 does have like a much smaller hull. So why is it as high as this tank? Why is it almost the same height as the Object 705? Since this tank has like a hull that goes all the way down and tracks that lead all the way down. But why is this tank so high? Because the hull, as you can see right here, ends right here. This is the lowest point of the hull. And that is because the tracks of this vehicle, this is the dirty thing about this tank. This is a very, very, very dirty thing. Because you have the V-shaped hull and you have the tracks that do not come into contact with the side of the tank. There's almost no contact. So if you're shooting the tracks of this tank, you will be able to track this vehicle, but you'll not be able to do any damage because you'll not be hitting the tank itself. Just imagine that. Look at this. The hull ends right here. The tracks are right here. This is the track. Do not shoot the tracks if this tank is in front of you. So regarding that, very, very strong. But what about the cheeks right here? Well, this is where it gets very interesting. When you're side scraping with this tank, you're presenting them a huge target right here on the side with these cheeks, because the pike nose design will always allow the enemy to have that nice little part right here, and if you are not able to face them at an angle like this, they will be coming right at you from the front, and then you'll have the lower plate. Now the lower plate, this is going to be very interesting, is not as tough as the IS-7's lower plate, but it's angled fairly crazily, like very, very crazy angles. Then you have the turret. Moving on to the turret, you can see that it's not the IS-7 turret. There are two very, very prominent looking cupolas on top. I know it's Russian cupolas, so nothing like the T-110E5, but they will be a target nonetheless. And since this tank is not as high as, for example, the T110E5 or the E100, you'll be able to shoot downwards in this tank if you're face-hugging it. And you have this upper plate armor right here that will not withstand a lot of shots. So this is very interesting. But as always, since this is a tank preview, we will only look at this tank at a fully upgraded version, because if you have the non-fully upgraded version, you'll have IS-3 turret, and there are just some differences. You have the BL9, so it's pretty much an IS-3 with the with a new hull. So pretty much this gun right here, the 122 BL13-1, is also on the Object 705, and we'll take a look at the firepower real fast. 440 average damage per shot, 248 millimeters of penetration, at least, I mean, it's decent for tier 9, nothing too special, nothing to write home about. 5.47 rounds per minute rate of fire. I do have equipment, so keep that in mind. 10.97 seconds reload time. The turret traverse speed with 27.73 degrees per second is very, very slow. Gun depression, 5 degrees of gun depression. 15 degrees of gun elevation, nothing too crazy, standard Russian gun depression. Aim time, 2.47 seconds, doesn't seem to be too bad. If we look at the IS-7, I think the IS-7 is almost the same. We can take a look at my IS-7 real fast. Yeah, it's exactly the same. Except that I don't have the crew on the IS-7 right now, so yeah, would be a little bit better because of my cruise training. Dispersion at 100 meters, 0.38. This is not a sniper. That's exactly what I thought. DPM 2.4K. So it's not a bad gun by any means. It's a tier 10 gun right here. I'd say it's similar in the characteristics to the IS-4. If you're using the premium ammunition, you'll be having 340 millimeters of pen, which is like the standard pen of a tier 10 heavy tank. A little bit above average. I mean, the 330 mark is like what most tier 10 get with heat, I think. At least heavy tanks, and then, you know, it goes upwards from there on. But you don't really need that much of penetration, to be honest. But the nice thing about this tank is that you're firing APCR ammunition, I think, as standard rounds. This is almost the same gun as the Object 260 has. The Object 260 has a very similar kind of gun, I think. I still haven't unlocked it. I'm working my way through it, but the missions, some of them are really annoying. So yeah, moving on. Survivability. 1,900 hit points, same as the STI. 130 millimeters of frontal armor. That means the cheeks right here. 140 on the side. Thicker side armor than front armor. So this is exactly what they want to do. This is what they want you to do when you're playing this tank. At least when people are driving this tank, they want you to shoot the side armor, because there's spaced armor. There's like this V-shaped hull. Like, they're going to angle it, and I'm going to show you guys some gameplay where the angling does work and what you can do with it. But at the same time, how you can go around and work around those issues and still take out this vehicle. So 70 millimeters of rear armor, nothing too special right here, nothing to write home about. You can see that the V-shaped hull right here doesn't really count anymore on the back, since it kind of gets interlocked between the tracks. On the rear, the tracks are actually connected to the tank. So you can actually damage this tank by shooting the tracks in the back, but you cannot damage the tank by shooting the tracks in the front. Very, very interesting design. 350 millimeters of frontal hull, turret armor, not including the cupolas on top. 240 on the side and 100 on the rear. Like, the 240 on the side is a very nice addition, I'd say. But at the same time, you have like this almost flat surface right here with the two cupolas. So you can still shoot this tank at the side of the turret if you're aiming like close enough. And this tank can go up to 50 kilometers per hour. The specific power is 13.08, so it's not too bad at accelerating. I mean, I've seen worse, certainly. We can compare it to the Object 705. It's on the same level. 15 kilometers going backwards, and traverse speed of 42.67. traverse speed is actually a nice change, especially if you're playing the new Russian line, the Object 705 with 25.03, or the ISM with also I think 27. Like, this is disgusting. How do you want to turn those tanks? Like, really bad. So mobility wise, this tank is covered. It's supposed to be a predecessor to the IS-7, so it's going to be fast, it's going to be agile, it's going to be mobile. That's what you're expecting of this tank, exactly. A tank that has good armor, that has a decent gun, and that will be able to run around the map and do some damage. That's exactly what we're going to try out. I want to try out the armor, I want to show you guys what this tank can do, what it cannot do, and what I think of this vehicle in the end. So, as always, keep in mind, this is a test server, this is a preview, not a review. All the things are subject to change. Wargaming will be changing these tanks according to statistics that we players have provided them with by playing this vehicle. If they see that we're doing exceptionally well, they will probably look into it and nerf it. If they see we're doing really worse or really bad, they will buff it. That's at least my opinion. So, let's jump into the first game that I've prepared for you guys. So, I've prepared 2 games for you guys. The first one is going to be on Prokhorovka, and we're playing the Object 257. And yes, this is a 257 preview, excuse me. I'm a little bit tired. So, the Object 257. There are a few things that we've talked about. We've talked about the armor, the V-shaped hull, the pike nose design, and what we're going to do right here in this match is we're going to see if this tank is really that overpowered, because that is the main problem right now. People do think this tank is too strong, too powerful, but actually there are some things that you'll notice about this tank that do make it a bit more balanced once you notice these points. And that is that if you play this tank and your pike nose is showing, it is the best spot to shoot. It's similar to the IS-3. If you have a big enough caliber gun, you'll be able to do damage on this vehicle through the pike nose. Now, what you can see me doing right here is playing a very aggressive kind of style. I want to play the middle, there's one artillery. I want to try out the gun of this vehicle, since it's an APCR gun, and you can see the spaced armor on the Object 705 is just too strong for my 248 millimeters of pen, I think. But we still, I'm not sure, no, we don't put another round into 705. It's a tank that is a bit awkward to shoot at, especially if you don't have enough gun depression. But what you can see right here is we're actually shooting at the Object 257 right there, and we penetrate his side. 248 millimeters of pen are enough to go to the side there, but I'd say that was a lucky shot, because shooting this tank at the side is the worst thing you can almost do, because of the V shape, it's very difficult to get a shot into the tank, except if the tank is, you know, on an edge, on a certain height difference, because you can actually shoot up into the V-shaped hull if he's like at an angle. But right here you can see the nice thing about this tank is definitely that it's running with APCR rounds. APCR allows you to have a very nice short time of flight for your rounds, very nice velocity, and certainly does give you that edge in penetration. Right here we haven't really taken any damage up until now. We've bounced 490 HP worth of damage, and that's the first hit we take. We take a hit into the side of our turret, I think. No, actually we take a hit right into our pike nose design. This is where you want to shoot this tank, the pike, like this nose. This is like so vulnerable. And the Waffenträger auf Panzer 4 actually does manage to get one nice round into us. 1900 hit points, on the other hand, though, does give you a nice leverage, because if you imagine, I mean, the M103 does have like 1850, but it's not as well armored, so yeah, that one's kind of suffering a little bit more than this tank. And, you know, having APCR allows you to do those snapshots, and we get penetrating the side of our turrets. by the I'm not even sure what it was, but I think the 705. And this is something that you have to doesn't really happen that often. What you have to do in this tank though is you have to protect your pike, your nose, your front of the tank. If you can protect your front, you can side scrape very, very nicely, and you can force the enemy to shoot into your side armor. And with that V-shaped hull, you can do a lot of bouncing. And we're gonna do that afterwards. I'm gonna show you guys a game where we did just that, and it will show you just how effective it actually is. But right now we're gonna eat up this tortoise, and obviously APCR. I think I'm not even sure what the accuracy of this tank was. It wasn't. I think it wasn't something as stunning as the T11085 or something like that. But still, it's good enough to be able to penetrate the weak spot on the tortoise. And right here you can see this is exactly where I want to shoot this tank, in the pike, in the front of the vehicle, not on the side. Even if he gives you like the biggest side profile, don't get too sidetracked by the side and shoot at the side. Shoot the front of the tank, because it's almost a clear pen at that angle, and if you have enough pen, you'll be able to do that. And what you could see right there is that these two guys actually did manage to take us out by shooting our turret. And that turret right there on the side especially, it does stick out. So this is a weak spot that is quite prominent in my opinion. And then you have like the cupolas on top where you can shoot from the front. I think that's at the same time also quite an effective weak spot of the tank. So it's not all just overpowered. It does have its weak spots, and I'd say that now that we have seen what this tank can do and where its limitations are, I'd say we can jump over into the other game and see just a perfect example in what you don't want to be shooting at if this tank is in a very good position. And I'd say let's do it right now. So we're playing on the map Fisherman's Bay, and you can see that there are a lot of Object 257s, 705s, and some other stuff in this matchup. And this was, I think, my second game. Like the first thing I noticed when I picked up this tank, when I got it into my garage, was the V-shaped hull, and this is where I got really interested in trying out my theory, because if you guys remember a video by Wargaming back in the days about the T-22, they had a similar kind of situation where the tank was side-scraped backwards and was able to bounce a lot of shells by high-tier tanks. And you can see this was the second game where I thought this tank was like incredibly OP, but after playing a few games and having to fight this tank a few times, I noticed that this vehicle actually is not overpowered as it is right now. It is at a very strong position, but it certainly is not overpowered, because there are some ways to take this out very, very easily and very reliably. But the problem with this tank is just, I think once you're facing this vehicle at tier 8, tier 7, you're gonna have a bad time, because the armor on the front will suffice, against the tier 7s, but it might not hold up against these tier 10s and tier 9s, but it might hold up against those tier 8s and tier 7s, and this is where I see the problem, because if they have this tank at tier 7 and tier 8, they'll maybe have some issues with going through the front part. But you can see the M48 pattern. Both of the shots were hit in my pike nose, and I thought like that was kind of weird, because I thought this tank wouldn't let any of those shots go through, but I was kind of mistaken. Gladly so. But what you can see right here is that we are side scraping in the old school backwards fashion, and what you can do in this tank is just incredible. So first shot bounced, or actually he just tracked us. And remember guys, the tracks do not count as a part of this tank, so if they shoot your tracks, well, don't worry, it's not going to damage your tank. This is just one of the things that people have to get used to. It's just a completely new tank design. And where did he actually manage to penetrate us? Right there. He managed to penetrate our top part of the turret. This is also another weak spot. The top part of the turret is not very strong. It's like this part right here is a spot which you can penetrate. The problem is just it's not very big, right? It's not very big. It's not one of those prominent weak spots. We bounce another shot on the spaced armor right here. We bounce another shot by somebody else. I have no idea. We can just see how incredibly successful you can be at side-scraping backwards with the tank if the enemies don't really know where to shoot you at. This M46 obviously had a very bad time in the end, not being able to shoot me right there, but there are limits to this tank, and the limit actually is this part right here. You cannot overextend too far out because they will not be able to penetrate on your side, but they'll be able to penetrate you on the rear, because this part right here doesn't belong to the V-shaped hull anymore like the spaced armor. But on the other hand, if he tries to shoot my side right here, he will not be able to do that. And that's exactly what we did right here. We lured him into shooting our side, but all good things have to come to an end, and he manages to penetrate us in the back part of the tank. So I would say this tank, as a final verdict, as this final preview, is it overpowered? No. Is it strong? Yes. Is it like a good all-rounder? I would like to say so. It is a good tier 9 tank. At least right now, I think it's decent. It's good enough. Does have the mobility. It does have the nice gun. Doesn't have like the best accuracy or aim time. And it certainly has a very, very unique set of armor. People are upset because it's something new that they have to get used to. It's something that they have to learn first. Because obviously we have been playing with tanks for a few years now. This new design of tanks, this V-shaped hull, is something very, very new. Not a lot of people own the T-22, but a lot of people do own the Object 907. And the 907 at the front is a very similar thing. But you'll be thinking, well, wait, Tiger Tank, the Object 907 has like a lower plate that's like going completely through the tank. Yes, that's true, but the actual tank design is a V-shape hull, and those little parts are just spaced armor. That's why people are bouncing off the 907 when they're shooting its lower plate a lot of times, because they don't really know that there's a V-shape, it's a V-shaped hull, and the other parts of the tank don't really belong to the tank as a damage model. That's the disgusting thing about the 907. Just is so nicely armored. So, the Object 257, in the final verdict of this preview right now, in its current state, it is a tank that can do exceedingly well in a good position like this, where you can use your side armor very effectively. But at the same time, once the people figure out how to take out this tank, by shooting its turret, by shooting its pike nose in the front, by shooting its back armor like right here, and not shooting its track, they will notice how to take out this tank. They will learn it, and they will get better at the game while doing that. So I think adding this tank into the game I think it will increase the learning curve. It will be a very frustrating experience at the beginning, but it will increase the learning curve in the end, because it's like one of the first tanks that has like exceedingly good side armor, but mediocre frontal armor. It might be very unfair against tier 8s and tier 7s, but against tier 9s and tier 10s, well, this tank doesn't really stand a chance if it's in a one-on-one engagement, maybe against let's say I don't know, Object 705 frontally. Because if this tank cannot get into a position like this, the Object 705 will just be able to penetrate its front. Obviously, this tank can go through the lower plate of the Object 705, but I mean, it would be still an okay fight. It's not like one of them would have the crazy advantage, except if one of them would be in a great position. The 705 could be hauled down, then this tank would have nothing to laugh at. But if this tank is in a position like this and the 705 is out in the open, well, obviously this tank is going to, I think, take home the cake. But this is just my opinion, and it has been an interesting way of playing this tank. It's been very interesting. And I would love to hear what you guys think about this tank, because I think it's interesting. It might be a little bit of a learning curve at the beginning, steep learning curve. But once you get through it, you know how to take out this tank, and I think that people will get better through it with this tank being in the game. So, yeah, as always, comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.